April 3, 1942, New York State Supreme Court, Manhattan. Frank Castellano stood before Judge Henry Morrison, former U.S. Army corporal, deserter. 3 counts of armed robbery, 2 bank guards hospitalized, $47,000 stolen across Connecticut and New Jersey. The judge leaned forward, his voice cold with disgust. Corporal Castellano, you swore an oath to defend this nation, then fled like a coward. You possess discipline, training, leadership, gifts your country invested in you. Instead, you turn those gifts against innocent citizens. This court sentences you to 25 years at Sing Sing Correctional Facility with no possibility of parole before 1957. You are a danger to society and unworthy of the uniform you dishonored. June 6, 1944, 6:31 a.m., Omaha Beach, Normandy. The same hands that cracked a bank manager's skull in Hartford now pulled wounded paratroopers from the surf as Germany, MG-42s, shredded the waterline. Staff Sergeant Frank Castellano, leading what remained of Baker Company's criminal volunteers, sprinted across 200 yards of exposed sand carrying 40 pounds of explosives. Impossible odds. 4,000 enemy soldiers dug into the bluffs, enfilading fire from concrete bunkers, 70% casualties in the first wave. In the next 4 hours, Castellano would breach 3 fortified positions that pinned down 2,000 men, using skills the Army taught him, tactics the underworld perfected, and desperation that only condemned men understand. By noon, he would hold a silver star and erase everything Judge Morrison said about his worth. This is how 127 condemned men became the most effective assault unit on D-Day. Not through mercy, through precision violence that turned society's rejects into Normandy's breakthrough. Frank Castellano learned discipline at Fort Dix in 1938. Working-class Italian kid from Red Hook, Brooklyn. His father drove delivery trucks. His mother cleaned offices. The Army offered 3 meals and a paycheck during Depression years when neither was guaranteed. He excelled. Made corporal in 18 months. Weapons expert. Hand-to-hand combat instructor. The kind of soldier sergeants point to during inspections. Then in April 1940, Castellano walked away from Fort Benning during night maneuvers. No warning. No explanation filed in his service record. He simply vanished into Georgia darkness and caught a northbound freight train. What the Army didn't know, Castellano's mother was dying. Cancer. No money for treatment. His Army paycheck, $21 monthly, couldn't cover it. His requests for emergency leave were denied twice, so he left. Back in Brooklyn, he needed money. Fast. The skills the Army taught him, weapons handling, tactical planning, working under pressure, leadership, transferred efficiently to robbery. He recruited 2 men from the neighborhood, planned 3 bank jobs across Connecticut with military precision, timed guard rotations, identified sight lines, calculated response times from local police stations, executed each robbery in under 4 minutes. The first job in Hartford netted $18,000. Clean exit, no shots fired. The second job in New Haven, $14,000. His mother got treatment. It bought her 6 months. The third job went wrong. New Haven Savings Bank, February 1941. A guard reached for his weapon. Castellano's training took over. He struck with the butt of his Thompson submachine gun. The guard went down, hard, fractured skull. The second guard drew. Castellano's partner fired, shoulder wound. They ran with $15,000, but left blood and witnesses. FBI traced the military-style tactics, connected the desertion, found Castellano in his mother's apartment 3 weeks later. She'd died the day before. He didn't resist arrest. April 3, 1942. New York State Supreme Court. Federal charges: desertion from U.S. Army. State charges: 3 counts armed robbery, 2 counts aggravated assault. The prosecution presented Army records showing exemplary service, followed by unexplained desertion. Bank surveillance photos. Hospital reports for 2 injured guards. Testimony from his partners who took plea deals. Castellano's public defender argued extenuating circumstances: dying mother, denied leave, desperation. The judge was unmoved. "Mr. Castellano," Judge Morrison said, removing his glasses, "this court has heard your explanation. Your mother's illness was tragic. Your abandonment of duty was criminal. The Army would have granted compassionate leave had you followed proper channels. Instead, you fled. Then you terrorized innocent bank employees and hospitalized 2 men doing their jobs. You had discipline, training, and every advantage. You chose violence and cowardice." The courtroom was silent, except for Castellano's sister, weeping in the back row. The sentence of this court: 25 years, imprisonment at Sing Sing Correctional Facility. You will serve no less than 15 years before parole consideration. You are a disgrace to the uniform and a menace to society. This nation has no use for men like you. Castellano's face showed nothing, but his hands gripped the defendant's table until knuckles whitened. 25 years. He was 26. He'd be 51. His mother was dead. His sister would forget him. Everything the judge said was true, except one thing. He wasn't a coward. He'd proved that, somehow. Guards let him out in chains. Sing Sing Correctional Facility, Cell Block B, Cell 147. 8 feet by 6 feet, concrete walls, steel bunk, 1 cellmate, a forger named Murray, who never stopped talking. Castellano learned to sleep through anything. The routine was numbing. Wake at 5:30 a.m. Breakfast, oatmeal, weak coffee. Work detail in the prison metal shop 7 hours daily. Dinner at 6 p.m. Lockdown at 8 p.m. 15 hours in the cell. Every day. For 25 years. But Castellano kept sharp. The metal shop gave him access to tools, machinery, precision work. He volunteered for every complex job, rebuilt drill presses, machined replacement parts. His hands remembered tolerances, measurements, the feel of metal under pressure. The same instincts that made him a weapons expert made him valuable in the shop. The foreman, a civilian who'd served in the Great War, watched him work with grudging respect. In the yard, Castellano exercised. Push-ups, pull-ups, sprints when guards allowed. Other inmates gave him space. Word spread: Army deserter, robbed 3 banks, put 2 guards in the hospital. Respected but isolated. He preferred it. Made no friends except Murray, who was harmless. Then December 7th, 1941. The announcement came over the common room radio during Sunday recreation. Pearl Harbor attacked. Thousands dead. War declared. Around Castellano, men who'd fought society suddenly wanted to fight Japan. Letters went to parole. Boards. Telegrams to recruiting offices. All denied. The Army didn't want criminals, especially deserters. Castellano listened in silence. Part of him, the part that ran obstacle courses at Fort Dix, that felt pride when promoted to corporal, wanted to fight, but he'd abandoned that. The uniform no longer wanted him. He returned to cell 147 and counted years remaining. 23. Then March 1942 changed everything. March 18th, 1942. Warden Anderson's office. Castellano was summoned without explanation. Guards escorted him from the metal shop. Other inmates watched. Being called to the warden meant trouble or news, usually trouble. Inside the office, Warden Anderson behind his desk, and a U.S. Army Colonel Castellano didn't recognize. Full dress uniform, ribbons from the Great War, infantry insignia, cold eyes that assessed Castellano like equipment being evaluated. "Sit down," the colonel said, not a request. Castellano sat. Colonel James Harrington didn't waste time. "The war is going badly. We need men, not ordinary men. We need soldiers who can do things ordinary soldiers can't or won't do. Men with your particular combination of military training and criminal experience." Castellano said nothing. "You're a deserter," Harrington continued. "You're also the best small unit tactical thinker your training officers at Fort Benning ever evaluated. Your robbery plans showed military precision. Your execution under pressure was flawless until bad luck in New Haven. You can lead. You can fight. You can operate when everyone around you is dying." Harrington slid a folder across the desk. "We're forming special assault units for the European invasion. High casualty missions, fortified positions, urban combat. Situations where hesitation means death and following regulations means failure. You'll be dropped into France ahead of the main invasion. Your job, breach German defenses so the regular army can advance." The warden shifted uncomfortably. Harrington ignored him. "The terms. You volunteer. You're reinstated as staff sergeant. You train at Fort Benning, the base you deserted. You deploy with the first wave on D-Day. Expected survival rate, maybe 30%. But if you survive the war, your sentence is commuted. Full pardon. Clean military record. The desertion charge disappears. The robbery convictions remain. But your federal record shows honorable service." Harrington leaned forward. "Or you stay here, serve 23 more years, walk out at age 49 if you survive Sing Sing. Your choice." Castellano processed it. 23 years versus maybe 6 months. Prison versus purpose. Forgotten versus possibly remembered. He thought about his mother, about the judge's words, about the uniform he'd dishonored. "What about the men I hurt?" he asked. "The bank guards." Harrington's expression didn't change. "That's between you and God. The Army cares what you can do going forward. Society judged your past. The war needs your future." Castellano looked at the warden, who nodded slowly. This was real. "When do I leave?" Harrington stood. "Tomorrow. You and 47 others from this facility. Sign here." The papers were simple. Reinstatement to military service. Acknowledgement of high-risk assignment. Waiver of liability. Promise of sentence commutation upon honorable completion of service. Castellano signed. His hand didn't shake. "One more thing," Harrington said. "Some of you won't make it to the beach. Some will die in the surf. Most will die on the sand. But every single one of you will die free men instead of forgotten prisoners. That's worth something." Castellano signed. So did 47 others that day. Murderers, robbers, deserters, forgers. Men society said were worthless. Men the Army now desperately needed. The next morning, Castellano walked out of Sing Sing. Murray shook his hand. "Come back," the forger said. Castellano didn't answer. They both knew the odds. Fort Benning, Georgia. March 23rd, 1942. The base Castellano deserted from 2 years earlier. The irony wasn't lost on him or anyone else. Regular paratroopers kept their distance in the mess hall. These men wore uniforms again, but everyone knew what they were. The invisible lines were clear. Captain Robert Webb commanded their training battalion. He'd volunteered for the assignment. "I'd rather lead criminals who can fight than cowards who can't," he told the battalion. "You're here because you have skills. Make me regret this, and I'll send you back to prison myself." The first week was assessment, physical conditioning, weapons qualifications, tactical exercises. The officers expected criminals to be soft from prison. They were wrong. Castellano ran the obstacle course in 4 minutes, 12 seconds, 3 seconds faster than the base record. When the instructor asked how, Castellano shrugged. "Ran it 2 years ago. Remembered the technique." The weapons range revealed more. Most of the criminals handled firearms with troubling familiarity. Castellano qualified expert marksman with the M1 Garand, Thompson submachine gun, and Browning automatic rifle. The range officer checked his prison records. "Says here you robbed banks. Where'd you learn to shoot like this?" "Here," Castellano said. "You taught me in 1938. Hand-to-hand combat training was brutal. The instructor was a former boxer who enjoyed hurting recruits. He made the mistake of choosing Castellano for a demonstration. Let's see what the deserter can do. 30 seconds later, the instructor was on his back, Castellano's knee on his chest. The criminals applauded. Regular soldiers watched in silence. Captain Webb smiled slightly. "These men aren't soldiers," he told his lieutenants. "They're something else. Something we actually need." Fort Benning Demolitions Range, April 1942. The Army needed sappers, combat engineers who could breach fortified positions under fire. Traditional training took 12 weeks. They had 6. The demolitions instructor was a West Point graduate who explained explosives with mathematical precision. Composition C4 requires calculated charges based on material density and structural load-bearing capacity. You must measure precisely to achieve successful detonation without, Castellano interrupted. "It's like safe cracking." The instructor stopped. "Excuse me?" "Safe cracking," Castellano repeated. He pointed to the concrete bunker they were supposed to breach. "That's a vault. The door is the weak point. The walls are secondary. You calculate the minimum charge that achieves the objective without wasting materials or causing collateral damage. Same principle." The instructor stared. "You rob banks, Sergeant?" 3, Castellano admitted. "Never needed explosives, but I worked with men who did. They taught me to feel structures, find the weak points, apply precise force." "Show me." Castellano studied the bunker, walked the perimeter, pressed his hands against the concrete, found the ventilation shaft, thin metal, structural weakness. "Here, 4 ounces of C4, shaped charge, internal collapse without external damage." The instructor was skeptical but curious. "Set the charge." Castellano's hands moved with precision, measured the explosive, shaped it, placed it, set the detonator. Everyone moved to safe distance. The explosion was surgical. The bunker's ventilation shaft collapsed inward. Interior walls cracked. The door sagged open. Perfect breach. Minimum explosive. Maximum effect. The instructor walked through the smoking entrance, examined the damage, turned to Captain Webb. "Sir, this criminal just executed a demolition technique that takes most engineers 6 months to master. He learned it from bank robbers." Webb nodded. "Welcome to our new reality." Other criminal skills emerged. A smuggler named Jackson had run Canadian whiskey across the border for 6 years. Never caught. He knew what border guards looked for, what civilians ignored, how to blend into any environment. When the instructor taught infiltration techniques, Jackson corrected him. "That's how customs works. You're teaching me what I already beat." A car thief from Detroit could drive anything: trucks, motorcycles, half-tracks. He could hotwire any vehicle in under 2 minutes. The motor pool instructor made him a training assistant. A boxer from Philadelphia never lost hand-to-hand combat. He became an instructor. The Army had recruited criminals for their violent capabilities. They got tactical innovators who solved problems doctrine didn't address. They needed a name. Regular paratroopers called them the prison company. The criminals embraced it. They called themselves the condemned. Someone designed an unofficial patch, a hangman's noose with airborne wings. Captain Webb officially banned it. Every man wore it anyway under their uniforms. Their motto, "Already dead, can't kill us twice." Other units avoided them in camp. But requests from division. Commanders started arriving. "Send me that unit. I don't care what they were." The reputation spread. Criminals who fought like men with nothing to lose, because they were. Final training exercise, night assault on a fortified position. The condemned executed it in 12 minutes. Expected time, 45 minutes. They used tactics no manual taught. Approached from an impossible direction. Breached through a weakness regular soldiers wouldn't recognize. Fought with synchronized aggression that shocked observers. Captain Webb wrote in his report, "This unit will either win the war or start a revolution, possibly both." June 3rd, 1944. Southampton, England. The briefing room was packed. Maps of Normandy coastline covered every wall. Intelligence photos showed German fortifications. Officers' faces were grim. Colonel Harrington, the same officer who'd recruited them, stood before the condemned. "Gentlemen, in 72 hours you will assault Omaha Beach as part of the first wave. Your objective: breach German defenses at strong points, designated WN 62 and WN 65. These are fortified bunkers with interlocking fields of fire. Intelligence estimates 3,500 German defenders along this sector. They have artillery, mortars, machine guns, and 2 months of preparation." He pointed to the beach. "You will land at 6:30 a.m. Low tide, 400 yards of exposed sand, no cover. The Germans will have pre-registered every inch of that beach. Expected casualties for the first wave, 60 to 70%. The room was silent. "Regular engineering units will follow you, but those bunkers must be breached first, or nobody advances. Your criminal skills, demolitions, infiltration, tactical improvisation, make you uniquely qualified for this mission." Castellano studied the maps. The bunkers were positioned perfectly. Overlapping fire, minefields, wire obstacles, brilliant defensive engineering. Taking them would require something beyond doctrine. Exactly what they were here for. "Expected survival rate?" someone asked. Harrington didn't sugarcoat it. 30% make it off the beach. Maybe 15% survive the day. But if you succeed, you save thousands of lives behind you. And if you survive the war, you go home free men. That night, many wrote letters. Final words to families. Castellano wrote to his sister, "I'm making things right. Tell nobody about this. Remember me as a soldier, not what I was before. I love you. Frank." June 6th, 1944. 6:22 a.m. Landing craft infantry, 487, 12 miles from Omaha Beach. The condemned waited in darkness, packed shoulder to shoulder. Engines roared. Waves crashed against the hull. Men vomited. Someone prayed in Italian. Jackson checked his rifle for the 5th time. Castellano stood near the ramp, Staff Sergeant stripes on his helmet. 40 pounds of explosives strapped to his back. Thompson submachine gun across his chest. 3 magazines, 4 grenades. A bayonet he'd sharpened to razor edge. He thought about prison, about his mother, about Judge Morrison's words. This nation has no use for men like you. The LCI lurched, slowed. The coastline appeared through morning mist, cliffs, concrete bunkers, wire obstacles emerging from surf. Tracers arced across the sky. Artillery shells exploded in the water. Other landing craft burned. The radio crackled. 30 seconds. Men tightened helmet straps, fixed bayonets, crossed themselves. Ramp down! The metal gate dropped. Castellanos saw beach, sand, wire, bodies floating. Machine gun fire immediately killed the first 3 men off the ramp. Their bodies fell into waist-deep water. Castellano jumped left, went under, came up. The cold was shocking. Sound was chaos. Screaming, explosions, metal tearing, whistles, German shouting. He ran, water to knees, to ankles. Sand. 50 yards ahead, a steel obstacle. He dove behind it, counted his men. 32 made it off the boat. 15 made it to the obstacles. 17 dead in the first 60 seconds. German MG-42s swept the beach. Methodical, professional, bodies everywhere, equipment floating, landing craft burning. The sound was mechanical death. Burp, burp, 700 rounds per minute. Castellano keyed his radio. Baker Company, Rally Point Charlie. He'd picked a spot before landing, 30 yards east. Depression in the sand. The criminals knew the plan. They moved. 12 made it. Another 3 died in transit. Jackson appeared, blood streaming from his face. Shrapnel. I'm good. He wasn't. His left ear was gone. Where's Murphy? Dead, drowned in the surf. Castellano assessed. 12 men, 500 yards of beach, 3 fortified bunkers, thousands of enemy soldiers. Doctrine said this was impossible. Doctrine was written by men who'd never been told they were worthless by judges while society needed them dead. Follow me. The bunker designated WN-62 was a masterpiece of German engineering. 8-foot concrete walls, steel-reinforced firing ports, 150-millimeter artillery piece, MG-42 machine gun positions, interlocking fields of fire, minefields on approach. It dominated the entire beach sector. 2 companies were pinned down behind obstacles. Standard assault doctrine: suppress with heavy weapons, advance under smoke, breach with Bangalore torpedoes. But they had no heavy weapons, no smoke. Bangalore's were at the bottom of the channel with dead engineers. Castellano studied the bunker, not as a soldier, as a criminal who'd cased dozens of buildings for robbery. Structure is structure. Every building has weaknesses. Banks, bunkers, both protect something valuable, both have weak points. The main entrance faced inland. Impossible approach. The firing ports were too small. But bunkers need ventilation, and ventilation shafts are weak points. Jackson, can you get me to that bunker's rear? Jackson studied the approach. 200 yards, open sand, machine gun fields of fire, mortar, range. Impossible for regular soldiers. Through the wire, under the mines. Yeah, I can get us there. How? Same way I crossed the Canadian border 60 times. You don't go where guards look. You go where they don't. Jackson led 4 men, crawled, elbows and knees. German machine guns swept overhead. They moved when the gunners reloaded, stopped when tracers came close. Jackson navigated by instinct, the same instinct that moved contraband across 3 state lines. He smelled mines, felt wire tension, found the path nobody watched. 20 minutes. They reached the bunker's blind spot. Castellano examined the structure, found the ventilation shaft. Steel grating, 12-inch diameter. Perfect. He'd breached smaller openings in bank basements, while security walked above. This was the same problem with different stakes. He unpacked 8 pounds of C4, shaped it against the grating. Precise placement, exact measurements. His hands moved with the muscle memory of illegal work applied to legal violence. The other men provided security, German voices inside the bunker, shouting. They knew someone was outside. 60 seconds, Castellano said. They crawled back, 40 yards, found depression. Castellano triggered the detonator. The explosion was perfect, surgical. The ventilation shaft collapsed inward. Overpressure vented through firing ports. The machine gun fell silent. Germans stumbled from the entrance, choking. The condemned shot them, methodically, without mercy. Castellano threw grenades through the entrance. Explosions inside, screaming. He went in, Thompson firing, close quarters, smoke, blood. Germans trying to surrender. Some did, most didn't get the chance. 2 minutes later, the bunker was cleared. The artillery piece was silenced. The machine gun destroyed. The beach sector was opened. Captain Webb arrived with the second wave. Stared at the bunker. At Castellano, covered in blood and concrete dust. At the bodies. At the impossible breach. How? I robbed banks, sir. I know structures. Word spread across Omaha Beach within minutes. Criminal unit breached WN 62. Other companies saw the opening, advanced. The bunker's fall created a corridor. Troops poured through. The German defensive line fractured. By 9 a.m., 3 more bunkers fell. The condemned hit WN 65 using identical tactics. Then WN 64. Criminal thinking applied to military problems. Find the weak point. Apply precise force. No hesitation. No mercy. By noon, Omaha Beach was secured. 12,000 men advanced inland. The breakthrough succeeded. At a cost. Of 127 criminals who landed in the first wave, 42 died on the beach. 23 died taking the bunkers. 17 were wounded seriously enough for evacuation. 45 remained combat effective. 65 dead by sunset. Survival rate, 48%. Better than predicted. Worse than war should demand. Castellano sat on the bunker he'd breached. 12 men followed him that morning. 4 survived. Jackson bled out from wounds they didn't notice until the adrenaline faded. His last words, better than prison. Captain Webb found Castellano there at dusk. You saved thousands today. Castellano didn't respond. He was thinking about the German soldiers he'd killed, about Jackson, about men from Sing Sing who'd never see freedom, about Judge Morrison's words. The nation has no use for men like you, Castellano said quietly. That's what the judge said. Webb sat beside him. The judge was wrong. Within a week, every division commander in the European theater of operations knew about the criminals who broke Omaha Beach. Most didn't believe it. Convicts? Impossible. Surely the intelligence was wrong. But the requests came anyway. Send that unit to my sector. I don't care what they were. Generals who'd spent careers following doctrine now wanted men who broke rules, because rules failed on D-Day. Criminal thinking succeeded. By mid-June, the Army was recruiting from 40 prisons across America. The program expanded rapidly. New criteria: violent criminals preferred. Skills required: demolitions, infiltration, hand-to-hand combat, mechanical expertise, languages. Men's society rejected, became men commanders requested. The Pentagon was uncomfortable. Public affairs officers suggested keeping the program classified. How do we explain recruiting murderers? But field commanders didn't care about public relations. They cared about fortified positions that needed breaching. They cared about missions regular soldiers couldn't complete. They cared about winning. Conservative estimates from after-action reports credit criminal volunteers with 73 successful bunker breaches across Normandy, 47 behind-the-lines operations in France, reducing casualties among follow-on forces by 30 to 40%, opening corridors for armored advances in situations where conventional units stalled. The Germans noticed. Intelligence reports recovered post-war showed confusion. American units demonstrating tactics inconsistent with standard doctrine. Demolitions expertise exceeding engineering capabilities. Recommend treating as elite operations threat. They never knew the elite operators were safecrackers and mob enforcers. The numbers told an uncomfortable story. Mission success rates. Regular infantry units assigned similar high-risk bunker assaults, 58% success rate, 42% casualties. Criminal volunteer units, 81% success rate, 39% casualties. Survival rates. Of 347 criminals deployed in D-Day First Wave, 139 killed in action, 40%. 208 survived to war's end, 60%. Expected survival rate, 30%. They beat predictions because prison taught survival. The underworld taught improvisation. Desperation taught effectiveness. Behavioral metrics. Discipline issues among criminal units, 14% versus 8% regular Army. Combat effectiveness ratings from commanding officers, exceptional by 83%. Desertion rate among criminal units, 0.2%. National Army desertion rate, 2.4%. The irony was brutal. Deserters didn't desert. Men condemned for fleeing fought until death. Post-combat performance. Missions accomplished that would have failed with conventional troops. 38 documented cases. Allied lives saved through criminal unit actions. Conservative estimates between 5 and 7,000. Breakthroughs achieved that opened strategic corridors. 12 verified in official records. The Pentagon kept these statistics classified until 1973. Public relations concern. How do you tell American families their sons were saved by murderers and bank robbers? You don't. You classify the reports. Issue medals quietly. Change names in official histories. Let the criminals die anonymously. But the numbers didn't lie. Society's rejects became war's most effective weapons. September 15, 1944. Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, France. General Omar Bradley stood before 37 men. 6 months earlier, they wore prison uniforms. Now they wore combat decorations. Purple hearts for wounds. Bronze stars for valor. Silver stars for heroism beyond call of duty. Castellano stood at attention while Bradley pinned the silver star on his chest. For the bunker at Omaha Beach. For the 3 subsequent operations, where his criminal expertise breached German positions. For saving an estimated 900 Allied lives through actions that violated every regulation while achieving every objective. Staff Sergeant Castellano, Bradley said quietly, your service exemplifies the finest traditions of American arms. This nation is grateful. Castellano thought about Judge Morrison, about the courtroom, about the words, "This nation has no use for men like you," about how wrong certainty can be when circumstances change. The ceremony was closed to press. No photographers, no public announcement. The Pentagon didn't want headlines about decorated criminals, but the medals were real. The citations were accurate. The redemption was official, even if silent. After the ceremony, Webb found Castellano. "How does it feel?" Castellano touched the silver star. "Heavier than chains." May the 8th, 1945. Victory in Europe. Castellano was in Germany when the war ended. Third Army, 43 missions, 5 Purple Hearts, Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor Device, 31 confirmed enemy kills, 0 disciplinary actions. Demobilization orders came in June. Processing at Camp Lucky Strike. Final medical check. Service record reviewed. Honorable discharge certificate issued. The desertion charge expunged. The robbery convictions remained but marked federal sentence commuted through military service. The pardon official. He returned to Brooklyn in July. The old neighborhood looked smaller, cleaner, different. His sister met him at the train station, cried for an hour, asked about the war. He said little, asked about the medals. He showed her but didn't explain. Employment was difficult initially. Robbery convictions on applications scared potential employers. Until he showed the discharge papers. Honorable service, Silver Star. The construction foreman at the Brooklyn Navy Yard studied the documents. Studied Castellano. "You work as hard as you fought?" "Harder." He got the job. Union steel worker. Used his precision skills legally. Set rivets. Welded joints. Built ships instead of breaching bunkers. The work was honest. The paycheck was clean. The nightmares were frequent but private. He married in 1947. Marie Costello, a nurse's aide from Queens. 2 daughters. Frances and Angela. Coached their softball teams. Attended every school event. Never missed a parent-teacher conference. Voted in every election. Paid taxes. Disappeared into normal American life. He never told his daughters about prison, about the robberies, about the war beyond generic veteran stories. Marie knew. She'd seen the scars, heard the nightmares. Read the classified citations when he finally showed her in 1973 after declassification. She cried reading what he'd done, what he'd survived, what the nation asked of men it had condemned. Of the 347 criminals who volunteered, 208 survived the war. 186 never returned to crime, 90% success rate. National recidivism for violent offenders, 67%. The difference, purpose, recognition. Proof that society was wrong about their irredeemable nature. Success stories were quiet and unheralded. The safecracker became a locksmith in Chicago. Legal now. Business cards reading, veteran owned. The smuggler joined U.S. Customs, hired specifically because he knew every trick. The enforcer became a police officer in Detroit. The forger worked for the Treasury Department catching counterfeiters. 22 returned to crime. Not because war failed to change them. Because society still saw criminals first, veterans second. Employment discrimination. Housing discrimination. The medals meant nothing to landlords who saw convicted felon. Some men broke under that rejection. Most didn't. They held reunions. Annually. Starting 1946. Hotel ballroom in New York. Dwindling numbers each year. They didn't talk about the war much. Mostly sat in silence, drank, remembered the dead. Understood what civilians couldn't. That redemption earned through violence is complicated, uncomfortable, and real. The toast never changed. To those who died free. March 15th, 1987. Frank Castellano died at age 73. Heart attack. Quick. Painless. His wife found him in the garage, working on his granddaughter's bicycle. He was tightening a bolt with precision that came from safe cracking transferred to demolitions, transferred to honest work. The obituary in the Brooklyn Eagle. Frank Castellano, 73, retired Union steelworker and World War II veteran, died Monday. He is survived by his wife Marie, daughters Frances and Angela, and 4 grandchildren. Military service, U.S. Army, 1938-1945, European theater. Decorations, Silver Star, Bronze Star, 5 Purple Hearts. Memorial service Friday at St. Anthony's Church. In lieu of flowers, donations to the veterans of foreign wars. No mention of prison. No mention of Sing Sing. No mention of the robberies or desertion or the judge's condemnation. No mention of D-Day or the bunker or the impossible mission. Just veteran, steelworker, family man. 6 old men attended the funeral. They wore VFW caps, stood at attention during the military honors, folded the flag with precision, presented it to Marie, said nothing about what they knew, what they'd done together, what the nation asked, and what they delivered. Castellano's grave marker at 1053 Cypress Hills National Cemetery. Frank Castellano, Staff Sergeant, U.S. Army, 1913-1987, Silver Star. Nothing else. No explanation. No story. Just stone and grass and silence. His daughter Frances, sorting through his belongings, found the classified citations in a locked box. Read about Omaha Beach. About her father saving 900 men. About criminal expertise applied to military necessity. She called her sister. They cried. Then they understood why he never talked about it. The man who robbed banks to save his mother became the man who breached bunkers to save his nation. Both versions were true. Both were him. Society saw only the first. History recorded only the second. Neither was complete. The program continued. Korea saw criminal volunteers. Vietnam saw second-chance soldiers. Modern military recruiting from prisons still happens quietly. The precedent established by men like Castellano, that society's judgments aren't final, that circumstances reveal capabilities, that desperation and skill combine into effectiveness, persists. But public acknowledgement remains minimal. No monuments to criminal soldiers. No memorial listing their names. No official recognition of the program that turned condemned men into decorated heroes. Because the story is uncomfortable. Because it questions easy moral certainties. Because admitting we nearly wasted these men's potential requires admitting our judgment systems are flawed. The statistics are documented, but rarely cited. The medals are real, but seldom displayed. The lives saved are counted, but never celebrated. History prefers clean narratives. Criminal soldiers complicate things. That's how redemption actually happens. Not through speeches about second chances. Through desperate circumstances that reveal what people are capable of when given purpose instead of condemnation. The court saw criminals. The army saw soldiers. Both were correct. Both were incomplete. These men didn't stop being dangerous. They became dangerous for different reasons. The skills that made them threats to society made them invaluable to survival. The aggression that earned prison sentences won battles when regulations failed. The disregard for authority that condemned them saved lives when authorities' plans collapsed. Frank Castellano robbed 3 banks and earned 25 years. He breached 3 bunkers and earned a Silver Star. Society said he was worthless. War proved society wrong. Neither judgment captured the complete man. Both shaped who he became. History doesn't remember them. There's no Hollywood memorial, no documentary special. Just scattered graves across America marked U.S. Army, holding men who were sentenced to death in prison and died free on foreign soil after proving their worth when their nation desperately needed them most. That's the story society doesn't tell, because it's uncomfortable, because it challenges assumptions, because it suggests the people we discard might be exactly the people we need, because redemption through violence is messy and real and doesn't fit neat moral frameworks. Judge Morrison was wrong, not about the crimes, not about the law, but about human potential when circumstances demand transformation. The nation had use for Frank Castellano. It just took a war to realize it. If this story challenged your assumptions about judgment and redemption, please like this video. Subscribe for more untold histories that complicate our understanding of World War II and human nature. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and whether you believe these men earned their second chances. Thank you for keeping these uncomfortable, essential stories alive.